RPN, Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. 13 sa Sinday Utso sa dial sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda, dili sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may galaon sa katawhan, andam mo serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda, sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
This is Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Tonight on the program, more Filipinos escape the war in Ukraine as U.S. President Joe Biden sends a strong message for Russia amid its invasion of the former Soviet state. Fuel prices have increased non-stop for 9 weeks. The government now warning oil companies against overpricing. And Filipinos usher in the Lenten season with marks on their foreheads again on the first Ash Wednesday under the new normal. We begin with the United States tightening the noose on the Russian economy. U.S. President Joe Biden announces the closure of American airspace to Russia in his first State of the Union address. The move aligns with Canada and the European Union that banned Russian flights to isolate Moscow. Biden also warns Russian President Vladimir Putin they will go after his government.
I say to the Russian oligarchs and the corrupt leaders who built billions of dollars off this violent regime, no more. The United States, I mean it. The United States Department of Justice is assembling a dedicated task force to go after the crimes of the Russian oligarchs. We're joining with European allies to find and seize their yachts, their luxury apartments, their private jets. We're coming for you, ill-begotten gains. He has no idea what's coming.
Russian and Ukrainian officials met for the first time on Monday, but failed to reach any breakthrough. Russia says a second round of talks may happen Wednesday, but Ukraine has yet to confirm this. Now, as Moscow continues to escalate its attacks on Ukraine exactly 7 days since the invasion, how are Filipinos faring in the embattled capital, Kiev? Our Tristan Nadalo has that and more in this report.
Amid the Russian invasion, OFW Ghislaine Rocher knows that she will eventually run out of options if she stays any longer in Ukraine's capital, Kiev.
Ayan na ang haba ng pila sa grocery.
During the weekend, she saw an opportunity to leave her residence and went to a bomb shelter. She spent a few nights there along with other Filipinos who wanted to leave the city. In a series of Facebook posts, she described their condition at the packed shelter. It was dark and they were not allowed to talk to each other for their safety. Cell phones were not allowed as well. From the shelter, she proceeded to the train station, hoping to catch a ride to the western city of Lviv.
Finally, nakapunta rin kami. So, galing sa bunker.
Wala, sisigawan sila dun. Oh, ay, nag-aaway na sila.
She said the train was also jam-packed with people from different countries wanting to escape the capital.
Kasi kami Pilipino, so dito lang ang daming iba't ibang lahi. Uy, grabe, ang magamit namin, ayan lang. Dito kinakatrakan ng mga Ukrainian.
Fortunately, Ghislaine's group managed to reach Lviv and are now in coordination with the Philippine Embassy in Poland. Meantime, 13 Filipinos from Ukraine have returned home on Tuesday. This brings a total number of repatriates to 19. The DFA is also closely monitoring the plight of Filipino seafarers in Ukraine.
The plan is to keep on, to have continuous presence on the ground as long as it's necessary at as long as pinapayagan tayo doon. At ilikas talaga yung mga gustong lumikas at mag-give ng tulong doon sa mga may ibang pangangailangan. Kasi yung iba kailangan talaga ng counseling. Pero medyo kalat-kalat kasi ngayon yung mga Pilipino. We have around 141 people identified to be still inside the Ukraine.
I reached out to them and asked them if what can I do to escape the situation, and they told us that they're gonna meet us in a metro station, and so that's where all the Filipinos that were able to meet at the metro station, that's where we were evacuated. I'm very thankful po na nakauwi. But again po, my heart still breaks. My heart is still back in Ukraine, and my heart still breaks for the news that I see every day.
In another post, the DFA said 21 seafarers have been extracted from Ukraine and brought to Moldova. The government is now facilitating their repatriation flight back to Manila. Tristan Udalo, CNN Philippines.
The Philippines is strengthening economic measures amid the Eastern European crisis. A day after his meeting with select officials, President Duterte said the government will boost food production by providing more support to farmers and fisherfolk. He also approved the 2.5 billion peso Pantawid Pasada and the 500 million peso fuel discount programs. The president will likewise push for a review of the oil deregulation law. He adds the trade and energy departments, as well as the police and military, are on standby for a response. The palace appeals for an early and peaceful resolution to the conflict in Ukraine. Filipinos observe Ash Wednesday, a day of prayer, fasting, and abstinence to usher in the Lenten season. As Chrissy Di Matulak tells us, churches in Metro Manila are packed for the first Ash Wednesday under the new normal.
We found Letty Gutierrez with her eyes closed, fervently praying the novena in Baclaran Church. After 2 years into the pandemic, this is the first time she went to church. And as the Lenten season begins, Letty prays that the country is on the road to full recovery.
Malalayo yung mga anak ko, kaya hindi kami magkakasama. Kaya pinagdadasal ko yung kaligtasan namin, ng aming pamilya, at saka kailangan matapos na itong pandemic na ito.
Catholic devotees such as Letty return to tradition on the first Ash Wednesday under the new normal. They are once again allowed to receive ashes on their foreheads in the customary manner. At the height of the pandemic, when physical contact was prohibited, ashes were simply sprinkled on the head. Today, churches in Metro Manila are filled with people as capacity limits have been lifted on March 1st. Face masks are still required inside, and there are temperature checks upon entering the church premises. According to our Mother of Perpetual Help Shrine Rector Ino Cueto, it's a special Ash Wednesday for Filipino Catholics.
Tayo ngayon ay bumabangon unti-unti mula sa pandemya na ating hinaharap. Ganon din ay ang pagpapanibago na ito na panawagan ng Kwaresma ay papanibaguhin natin ang ating sarili at ang ating buhay. Malapit na din ang eleksyon. Sana din ay ito isang pamamaraan upang mabago din ang ating bayan at patuloy na tayo ay makapaglingkod sa isa't isa.
Apart from prayers to totally end the pandemic and for safe elections, church officials and devotees also pray for peace and to end the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. The church says the Lenten season also signifies new beginnings. People should not be afraid to start again and welcome new possibilities. Chrissy Di Matulak, CNN Philippines.
The country yet again sees record low COVID-19 numbers. There are 866 more people who caught COVID. This is the lowest single-day increase in infections since December 28, when fresh cases were only at over 400. It is also the second time this year that the daily tally fell below 1,000. Active cases now stand at over 50,800, excluding data from 8 non-reporting testing laboratories. 53 more patients died, another 1,622 recovered. Meanwhile, the positivity rate was logged at 4.7%. Slightly higher than yesterday's 4.3%. That is now the second straight day the positivity rate fell below 5%. The World Health Organization has set a benchmark of 5% or lower for at least 14 days to indicate that virus transmission in an area is under control. It's been a year since the country rolled out COVID-19 vaccines. After overcoming supply issues, the government is now facing the challenge of looking for those who are still unvaccinated or have not yet availed of a booster shot. Caroline Bonkin tells us more.
Most adults in this compound in Quezon City have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19, but some are not yet keen on getting a booster shot, like Gloria Gonzalez, a senior citizen. She finished her second dose of Sinovac last August, but is still contemplating about getting boosted.
Tatakot kasi ako ng anak ko. Ma, ba't ayaw mo pa magpabuksan? Baka mamaya maging zombie ka. Gago. Ayaw ko nga.
Jake Montales, meanwhile, considers getting an additional dose, but still hasn't got the time to visit a vaccination site.
Mas kailangan po siguro kasi para mas tumaas yung immune system.
1 year since the Philippines started its COVID-19 immunization, over 63 million people have been fully vaccinated, short of the 70 million target. Aside from convincing the vaccine hesitants, the government has been faced with a challenge of persuading people to get boosted. 36.7 million are eligible, but only 10 million availed of the additional dose.
Yung iba, nag-iisip kung kailangan ng booster. Yung iba naman na they don't see the urgency of the booster.
Many vaccines are still waiting to be used. Some have already expired. Others are nearing expiration.
We are still verifying and validating the numbers. Kasi yung iba, we have requested for extension of shelf life.
Infectious diseases specialists have been asking the public to get an additional dose after studies found protection against the Omicron variant declines after 3 to 6 months. A booster recharges the body's protection against COVID-19 infection. Cardiologist Gilbert Villela says this is especially true for those who have underlying illnesses like hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease. Their chance of being intubated or dying after catching the virus is higher. He says since not all of them are able to build immunity from the initial vaccination, a booster dose is necessary.
Overall, ang case fatality rate po ng COVID-19 ay 2.3%. Pero ito'y tumataas kapag may high blood ka from 2.3 to 6% pag meron ka ng hypertension.
Despite falling short of the target in the National Vaccination Day in February, there will be another massive vaccination drive from March 10 to 12. This time, vaccinators will turn to door-to-door outreach and will even visit workplaces like economic zones and government offices to have more health and economic frontliners covered. Caroline Bongkin, CNN Philippines.
In a bid to promote the vaccination drive, the LRT2 management is offering a day-long unlimited ride for free to passengers getting their COVID-19 shots at the Line 2 stations. Currently, vaccination sites are open at the Antipolo station Wednesdays and Fridays from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. and at the Recto station Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Passengers must show their pass and a valid ID upon entering Line 2 gates to avail of the free ride. But the free pass can only be used in the LRT2. LRTA will also open a new vaccination center at the Araneta Center Cubao station on March 7. When we come back, energy officials sending oil companies a warning as pump prices continue to rise. And with a threat to suspend benefits under the GSP Plus, a team from the European Commission is holding talks with officials in Manila to find out what this means for our export-oriented industries. Stay tuned to Newsnight. Welcome back. The Energy Department warning oil companies against overpricing as crude oil prices continue to rise globally. Undersecretary Gerardo Erguiza says pump prices should fall within these ranges as seen on your screens. Erguiza says oil companies overcharging customers may be probed for profiteering.
In that case, we will check immediately and sabihan sila, puntahan sila. And the Department of Energy has the authority to go against these acts.
The department says oil supply remains stable and the Russia-Ukraine conflict has no direct impact on local supply. Some presidential candidates take a stand on more issues 68 days ahead of the Filipino votes. Former Senator Bongbong Marcos sees no need for the Philippines to take a stand on the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia. He says the concern should be on the overseas Filipino workers in the war-torn country.
It's in the national interest. I worry about our national. Marami na rin napunta sa Poland. But there are some who do not want to be repatriated. So that's all the problem for the Philippines now.
But for Labor leader Leody de Guzman, being neutral means taking sides with the oppressor. He says it is narrow-minded to look at the situation only on how it would affect migrant Filipino workers. Senator Ping Lacson says the Philippines did the right thing when it voted in favor of a United Nations resolution condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Lacson said there might come a time Manila would need the international community's support in the face of another country's aggression. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno wants the government to create an evacuation plan for the 150,000 overseas Filipino workers in Taiwan should the country experience a crisis similar to that of Ukraine's. China sees Taiwan as part of its territory. Meanwhile, Moreno says he is not in favor of reviving the Bataan nuclear power plant, citing safety and environmental risks. Vice President Leni Robredo stands firm on her support for same-sex civil unions. During a Catholic forum, Robredo said the government should make sure that members of the LGBTQIA+ community are free from discrimination. She also reiterated that she is against divorce, abortion, and the death penalty. But she said she will not impose her beliefs and would listen to opposing views if she wins the presidency. And at least two candidates are against the Commission on Elections' plan to disclose the topics in its upcoming debates next month, or this month. The poll body said it would give candidates a general idea of the issues, but that it will not give specific questions.
Ang parang nagbigay ng leakage, para ano pa magbibigay ka ng exam kung magbibigay ka ng leakage? Hindi lokohan lang. Dapat mag-aral sila. Huwag silang humingi ng advanced questions.
Maganda kasi yung una spot na tinanong mo na ganun para mabigla. Makikita mo yung purity kung ano yung nilalaman ng puso. Debate pa lang, natatakot na. Paano pag nanalo ka na? Eh, nakatakot, baka magnakaw naman ng pera ng gobyerno. Diba? Pero karapatan naman nila yan na hindi mag-attend ng debate.
Bongbong Marcos has yet to confirm his attendance the COMELEC presidential debate, saying he is still looking at the format. Well, sparks flew during the CNN Philippines vice presidential debate last Saturday as candidates discussed the plight of small businesses struggling to survive amid the economic crisis. How do they bring back jobs and profits? Let's take a look back with Melissa Lopez.
2 years into the COVID-19 pandemic, how can small businesses bounce back and recover?
Madaling maminta.
This issue sparked tension between former Akbayan Party List Representative Walden Bello and Senate President Tito Soto at the CNN Philippines vice presidential debate. When asked how they would help micro, small, and medium enterprises or MSMEs, which account for 99% of Philippine businesses, Bello said 2 bills amending the Foreign Investment Act and the Retail Trade Liberalization Act should be rescinded, as both seek to allow greater foreign investments in more local industries.
We have had all of these foreign-oriented laws that have been passed recently, and Senate President Soto was the one who pushed them through Congress. You're sending this country and our SMEs to the hands of all these foreign enterprises that will eat them up.
Soto did not back down.
The Retail Trade Liberalization Law is to uplift the economy of the country. It is madaling mamintas sabihin nga na, no, ba't binaba yung ano.
Mr. Bello, no interruption please.
Bello also said Senator Kiko Pangilinan voted yes to a law reducing taxes on big corporations.
Ang laki, trilyon na nawala sa atin yan. Senator Soto, Senator Pangilinan, pareho kayo nagboto sa CREATE Act that gave big tax breaks. So what are you saying, that you are not guilty of this process?
Nasa gitna tayo ng pandemya, hindi lang yung maliliit, pati yung mga malalaki na naapektuhan ng pandemya, yung negosyo nagsasara.
There's also dispute about new taxes. If elected Vice President, Bello plans to impose a wealth tax on the 500 richest Filipinos to raise up to 3 trillion pesos for public projects. Soto rejects any tax hike.
Hindi pa pwedeng dagdag ng tax. Nagbawas nga kami. We passed in the CREATE law that yung lahat ng below 250,000 a year ang kinikita, hindi dapat magbayad ng income tax.
Candidates agreed on the need to arrest surging fuel prices and making it easier to pay income taxes.
The collection of taxes should be more efficient. Any avoidance of taxes should be penalized.
Economist Manny Lopez pushes for low-cost loans for MSMEs, while lawyer Carlos Serapio wants more funds for research and development. Melissa Lopez, CNN Philippines.
Did you miss the live broadcast of the CNN Philippines presidential and vice presidential debates? Catch the replays of the presidential debate on Saturday at 10 a.m. and Sunday 8 p.m. The VP debate will be run on Saturday at 7 p.m. Petitioners are taking another shot at striking down the anti-terrorism law. 26 groups filed a joint appeal urging the Supreme Court to reconsider its earlier decision that declared most parts of the controversial law constitutional. Petitioners scrutinized 3 sections under the act. One of them is a provision that penalizes individuals on the basis of joining a group that's, quote, organized for the purpose of engaging in terrorism, unquote. Petitioners say it's vague, overbroad, and fails the strict scrutiny test. Petitioners also questioned the powers granted to the Anti-Terrorism Council in designating terrorists, publishing their names without due process, and freezing their assets. And petitioners zeroing in on the provision that allows authorized law enforcers and military personnel to detain suspected terrorists without charges for up to 24 days. National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon says petitioners have the right to appeal, but the government will abide by the law. Meanwhile, Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara defers to the government's top lawyer, Solicitor General Jose Calida. In other news, a team from the European Commission is in the country to look into alleged human rights and labor violations. They're holding talks with key Filipino officials until this Friday, March 4th. Our senior correspondent Lois Calderon tells us what this could mean for some of our export-oriented industries.
Since 2015, Artemio Cabilin has sold coconut flour to Germany at 30 metric tons per year. Europeans use coconut flour to make bread. He says it was good business, guaranteeing livelihood for coconut farmers. Cabilin's coconut flour entered Germany duty-free under the so-called GSP Plus, or Generalized Scheme of Preferences Plus, granted by the European Union to the Philippines since 2014. But COVID-19 happened, disrupting the supply chain.
Yung pong coconut flour, suspended na po yun kasi dahil nga po sa pandemic, isitat nga sila pagka food product. Yung importer namin, wala mo na silang order eh. Wala pang communication. Ang sabi lang is, because of the current situation, restrictive ang business.
3 years into the pandemic, and as the global supply chain slowly returns to normal, Cabilin hopes to resume exporting to Germany with more byproducts like coconut charcoal. The market for virgin coconut oil in Europe is expanding, mainly because the pandemic forced consumers to choose healthier diets. Coconut's industrial applications in the European continent are also growing. But re-entering the European market could hit a snag. On February 17, the European Parliament handed down a resolution warning of the withdrawal of the duty-free privileges. The legislative body took issue with the Philippines' human rights situation and wants the Duterte government to make sure the presidential election is clean. It's not the first time the European Parliament flags these concerns. Over 6,000 Philippine products will be affected. Among them, canned tuna. The Tuna Canners Association groups 5 of the country's largest tuna exporters, including Century Tuna. Together, they sell as much as $400 million or nearly 20.5 billion pesos annually to Europe.
Disastrous, a major disaster, because if we stop Europe, we will lose more than half of our canned exports. We cannot enter that. However, I'm thinking, or even the DTI and I are discussing this matter. It takes about more than a year, maybe up to 2 years, for any changes in policy to be implemented.
A monitoring mission from the European Commission will begin talks with the Philippine government Monday, February 28 until March 4th. In a statement to CNN Philippines, European Union Ambassador Luc Veron says the visiting team will check the country's progress in carrying out 27 international conventions in human rights, labor, environment, and good governance, which are bases for the duty-free privilege. The outcome of the European Union mission's visit is a monitoring report that should be ready by the end of the year. In its hands lies the fate of thousands of exporters, fishermen, and farmers until the Duterte government or the next administration addresses the human rights issues that the EU has flagged 5 times since 2016. Lois Calderon, CNN, Philippines.
More stories ahead. Araneta Coliseum opens its doors to more fans for PBA games with a full capacity crowd now permitted. And what makes Robert Pattinson's Batman different? Details after the break. Welcome back. More fans will soon get to watch PBA games right in the Smart Araneta Coliseum. A full capacity crowd is allowed for the league's events beginning today, a day after Metro Manila's shift to Alert Level 1. Fans must still present a vaccination card and a government ID upon entry. PBA Commissioner Willie Marshall tells CNN Philippines there are plans for an Alaska Aces send-off, with the team now playing their last season in the league.
Meron balak kasi may i-retire silang player. Ayoko mo nang sabihin kasi sila talaga nagplano ng tingnan natin. May balak, at regarding sa prangkisa naman, baka yun ang susunod na tanong.
Yes.
May kinakausap na din si Mr. Fred regarding the franchise.
Marshall adds they will discuss Gila's head coach Chot Reyes' proposed 30-man national pool for global tournaments in the next board meeting. Players will include both PBA athletes and Gila's cadets. In music, a number of artists are canceling live shows in Russia to protest the country's invasion of Ukraine. Among them, chart-topping rock band Green Day. The group was supposed to play this May but called off the concert over the weekend. The band said on Instagram, quote, "We are aware that this moment is not about stadium rock shows. It's so much bigger than that," unquote. And yesterday, former One Direction member Louis Tomlinson announced he is canceling tour dates for July in both Moscow and Kiev. Tomlinson says he is prioritizing fan safety, adding that his thoughts go out to those suffering from this, quote, needless war. Indie pop trio AJR, as well as British artist Youngblood, also called off concerts in Russia. Back here at home, this new take on the Caped Crusaders' origins arrived in cinemas today. DC's The Batman stars Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne and Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman or Selina Kyle. Pattinson says an emotional dark element sets this Dark Knight apart from other portrayals.
He doesn't necessarily know that he's going to save the day, and I think that's a kind of important differentiation of this Batman. I think he doesn't know if being Batman is going to work or do anything. He doesn't know, but he knows that there is no other option. Basically, the options are kind of death or being Batman, and like there's a kind of hopeless, I don't know if it's hopelessness, but there's a desperation to it, which is a little bit different.
The Batman also stars Paul Dano as the Riddler and Colin Farrell as the Penguin. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. 13.68 sa dial sa inyong radyo. RPM DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda dili sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may galaon sa katawan, andam mo serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPM DXKO Radyo Ronda sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
As the country experiences another surge in COVID-19 cases, the Department of Health notes that majority of the new infections are mild to moderate. And as a result, home care is usually recommended for these patients. And as with any medical condition, understanding the safe use of over-the-counter medicines is essential and can make a huge impact in recovery. On the program today, we'll talk about what you can do at home if you experience flu-like symptoms and what medicines we should all have in our cabinet. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome to MedTalk Health Talk right here on CNN Philippines. Many of us turn to over-the-counter medicines to find relief from conditions like headaches, fever, muscle aches, and now COVID-19. Our guest is here today to tell us more about the safe use of them, from correct dosage to expected side effects. With us is Dr. Theresa Joy Santo Domingo, who is an emergency medicine specialist and director of emergency medicine at VRP Medical Center. In just over a few weeks, the Omicron variant caused the Philippines to reach a record high number of COVID-19 cases per day. And we continue to learn more about these new variants. So let's talk about what we know so far about Omicron. Dr. Joy, what can people expect as opposed to the Delta variant?
The Omicron variant has about 50 different mutations, and those 50 different mutations enable it to do several things. Number one, it enables it to spread faster. Number two, the Omicron variant evades certain antibodies that are produced by the vaccine. And this makes the vaccine less effective against the Omicron variant as compared to other variants.
New infections of Omicron here at home are usually mild to moderate. Is Omicron really causing milder COVID than, say, Delta? And are there any distinct symptoms of the variant? Something that was probably here now that wasn't there during the Delta variant surge?
Well, it's very difficult to tell the Omicron variant from the Delta variant symptoms. As usual, as we've seen, it still presents with the common features of the common cold, such as fever, runny nose, cough, difficulty of breathing. However, certain studies have shown that the Omicron variant tends to show with sore throat or an itchy throat, lower back pain, muscle pains, and nasal congestion. More on those characteristics or those symptoms compared to the other variant.
Is there any way to tell it apart, Dr. Joy? Tell apart whether this is just allergic rhinitis, if this is a cold, or if I have the flu, as opposed to it really being COVID?
It's very difficult to tell whether it is just the common flu or if it's signs of COVID already. So what we suggest is as soon as you start to show signs of having COVID, such as fever, cough, or cold, you begin to isolate already and take a test, whether that be the antigen, as a preliminary test, or the RT-PCR, which is the confirmatory test.
While it's reassuring that cases are mostly mild to moderate so far, we want to remind you that we should not let our guard down. What precautions, Dr. Joy, do we still need to take to protect ourselves from this virus?
So you should avoid crowded places, number one. Number two, avoid close contact with other individuals. Try to keep a distance of at least 2 meters or 6 feet away from each other. And three, avoid poorly ventilated areas.
Dr. Joy, since the start of the pandemic, experts have reiterated that masks can significantly reduce your chances of catching the virus. With the more contagious Omicron variant, are high-quality masks able to make a difference? Before, it was okay to wear cloth masks. Is that still the same case now with Omicron?
So there are different levels of masks that you can wear that offer different levels of protection. The regular cloth masks that are only made of one layer of cloth are not as effective in protecting you against any of the variants of COVID. So the more layers, the better. The double layer cloth mask, if you're going to use a cloth mask, is the best one to use. Next would be the KN95 or the surgical masks, which offer a higher level of protection against the smaller molecules or smaller particles of Omicron or different variants. And the highest level of protection is offered by the NIOSH approved respirators, such as the N95. But usually these are given to the healthcare workers.
Dr. Joy, for the regular folk, trying to go to work, do you still recommend a double cloth mask, or for that matter, or a KN95?
It depending on your exposure. If you're exposed to crowded areas, if you're going to be in close contact with other people, I suggest either the double cloth mask, or in higher risk areas, using a surgical mask or the KN95.
Ultimately, prevention is the best cure. So wearing your mask, practicing social distancing, getting vaccinated, and encouraging your friends and family to do the same will go a long way in preventing the transmission of COVID-19. And if you start to feel any warning signs, stay at home and isolate right away. Now, Dr. Joy, partly because the majority of cases being seen are mild to moderate, there's an emerging thought process of getting COVID, getting infected with COVID to be part of the quote-unquote COVID club, or getting infected in order to recover and get it over with. They justify this by getting infected with COVID in the wild. You get the antibodies that are stronger than the vaccine or any booster. What is the danger in thinking like this? What can this lead to?
Well, the latest studies show that the Omicron variant even infect you, even though you've been already infected with COVID. Actually, it's 5 times more likely that you can be reinfected by COVID with the Omicron variant as compared to the other variants. So even though you've already had COVID, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get COVID again with this Omicron variant circulating.
What do you say to those who feel like they're strong enough, they eat healthy, they work out, they would like to be infected with COVID just to get it over with to move on?
COVID is still very scary. It's very unpredictable, especially if you have other comorbids such as hypertension or diabetes. COVID could range anywhere from mild to moderate to severe, and it could hit you either of those ways. Either it could hit you strong or it could hit you mild. It's hard to tell which way it will hit you. So it's best to take protective measures for you not to get COVID instead of waiting to get COVID and seeing how it affects your body and your system. I'm hoping everybody can get vaccinated because we do have tools against Omicron. And our tools are, number 1, to wear a mask, number 2, to get vaccinated, and number 3, to get your booster shots. And stay safe, everybody.
Thank you very much, Emergency Medicine Specialist Dr. Theresa Joy Santo Domingo, for joining us today and sharing your expertise and insights. Now, using over-the-counter medicines can help ease symptoms like fever, headache, and body pains. But knowing what to take and when to take them can speed up your recovery and, more importantly, keep you safe. We'll talk more about this with registered pharmacist and TikTok edu creator Archie Larga when we return. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk, where caring is our calling. There's so much information out there about COVID-19. It can be very overwhelming, and some of the more scientific aspects are hard to maybe understand for some. One content creator is doing his part to help spread awareness.
Maraming tao ngayon ang may lagnat, sipon at ubo. Kaya ito pong ilang paalaala mula sa inyong pharmacist. Let me explain. Ang paracetamol po ay iniinom every 4 to 6 hours kung kayo po ay mayroon lagnat, pananakit ng katawan o pananakit ng ulo. At sa loob ng isang araw, maaari ka lamang po uminom ng 4 hanggang 6 na tabletas ng paracetamol. And most importantly, uminom po tayo ng maraming tubig at mag-ingat at patuloy na gumamit ng mga face mask.
Joining us now is Archie Larga. He's a registered pharmacist and TikTok edu creator with over 2.4 million followers. Now that cases, Archie, are rising again, I'm sure a lot of people want to know more about home care treatments, lalong-lalo na para sa COVID-19. Let's talk about over-the-counter medicines for mga simptomas na karaniwan parang sipon or lagnat.
For mild symptoms po, usually naman yan ay lagnat, ubo at sipon lamang. So, for fever po or lagnat, ang binibigay po usually is paracetamol. Then kapag naman po meron kang sipon, meron po tayong mga cough and cold preparations. And let's remember po na itong mga cough and cold preparations na to, maliban sa mga antihistamines at saka yung pang nasal decongestant, naglalaman din po ito ng paracetamol. So, kumbaga, nasakop na rin niya yung sipon at ganoon na din yung lagnat kasi may paracetamol na itong laman. Then, another thing po, pagdating naman sa ubo, meron po tayong, dapat alam natin kung ano yung ubong meron tayo. Either yan po ba ay productive cough o yung ubong may plema, o kaya naman ay dry cough o yung ubong walang plema. Kapag po productive cough o yung ubong may plema, pwede po tayo gumamit ng mga mucolytics o yung pantunaw ng plema tulad ng carbocysteine or ambroxol. If naman po gusto natin ilabas yung plema natin at nahirapan tayo lumabas, pwede tayo gumamit ng mga expectorant tulad ng guaifenesin. Now, kung dry cough naman po, pwede po tayo gumamit ng mga antihistamine kasi di ba usually makati lang naman yung lalamunan natin pero wala namang lumalabas na plema. So yun po, yung mga antihistamines po nakakatulong para mawala po yung pangatin ng lalamunan natin. Another thing is po yung dextromethorphan o yung tinatawag nating mga cough suppressant. So pinipigilan po nito yung madalas na pag-ubo. So yun po, yung mga usual na gamot na pwede nating inumin kapag tayo nakakaranas ng mga mild symptoms ng COVID-19.
Now, when it comes to over-the-counter medicines, Archie, many prefer name brands that they are familiar with over yung mga generic because hindi natin matatanggal yun na may notion talaga na kapag name brand, mas maganda. Meron ba talagang difference between a generic brand and a name brand?
Bilang consumers po, meron po kayong karapatan na mamili kung anong gusto niyo yung brand na gamot ang iinumin niyo, whether branded or generic. But during this time po na parang nagkakaubusan tayo ng mga branded or yung mga preferred brands natin ng gamot, let's remember po na meron tayong mga generic equivalent. Now, itong mga generic equivalent na gamot o yung generic na gamot po, ito po ay parehas ng active ingredient tulad ng branded na gamot. So for example, yung branded na paracetamol na gusto mo is walang stock, may generic na paracetamol na available at paracetamol din ang laman nito. Parehas sila ng gamit para sa lagnat or pain at parehas din po yung pag-inom nito. Also yung dose nila, kung 500 mg itong paracetamol na branded, may generic din po na 500 mg sa paracetamol. And let's remember po na kahit po generic ito, dumaan pa rin po ito sa proseso ng regulation ng Philippine FDA. So makakasiguro po tayo na ito ay safe, effective, and of quality.
Now, apart from ang tamang paggamit ng gamot, importante din ang tamang dami or ang dosage, which also matters significantly. How many times a day, Archie, are we supposed to take these recommended meds? What are some of the things na dapat na malaman ng mga viewers with regards to dosing?
Let's remember po na ang mga gamot po ay hindi candy. So pag sumobra po tayo, maaari tayong makaranas ng overdosage. So for example, for paracetamol po, kung nilalagnat po kayo, pwede po kayong uminom ng isang tableta ng 500 mg ng paracetamol every 4 hours. Or Kung naman po masakit lang yung katawan niyo or masakit lamang ang ulo ninyo, pwedeng every 6 hours po. And for a day, pwede po tayo mag-consume up to only 8 tablets ng paracetamol, which is equivalent to 4,000 milligrams. Now, pagdating naman po sa mga gamot sa ubo, like for example, yung carbocysteine, ambroxol, lagundi, tinitake naman po ito every 3 times a day po for at least 5 to 7 days. Or kung meron lang kayong simptomas ng ubo. Another thing is po, pagdating naman po yung sa mga cough and cold preparations natin, pwede po kayo uminom nito 1 tablet every 6 hours po. Hindi po 3 times a day, kundi every 6 hours po siya pwedeng inumin.
Now, over-the-counter medicines are generally safe to take for minor health problems. But remember, we still need to be wary about the correct usage as well as yung dosage nito. In one of your viral videos, Archie, you spoke about fake medicine. Tell us more about this and how can yung mga consumers, mga viewers natin, paano nila malalaman kung fake ang isang gamot or legit?
During this time po kasi, dahil nga nagkakaubusan ng mga preferred brands natin na gamot, may mga taong nananamantala talaga. Importante po na maging vigilant tayo at maging observant po tayo sa mga gamot na binibili natin. So, paano ba natin malalaman kung fake ang isang gamot? Unang-una po sa lahat, kung ano, gamitin natin yung mga senses natin. Like for example, yung packaging ng gamot, makikita po ninyo na kung medyo discolored or parang iba yung kulay ng tableta ng gamot or yung kapsula ng gamot. Pag hinawakan mo yung kapsula, parang malambot. Usually po pag maganda ang condition ng mga kapsula, firm yung pagkakagawa ng capsule. Another thing po na let's keep in mind is yung label ng gamot. Meron po kasi yung parang pag kinumpare mo po yung label ng counterfeit or yung fake na gamot sa original na gamot, usually po, mali yung placement o kaya may mga marks dun sa label or sa blister pack ng gamot na hindi katugma dun sa original na packaging. And most importantly po pala, bumili lamang po tayo ng mga gamot sa FDA-registered na mga butika.
Now, an infodemic is too much information about something like a disease outbreak. And this includes false or misleading information. As this infodemic problem grows, we'll talk about how content creators can be part of the solution. Your health is our mission here on MedTalk Health Talk. We'll be right back. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. In 2021, the Philippines had the highest social media usage in the world. Filipinos on average would use their phones 11 hours a day. Imagine how much information or misinformation we come across every day. Archie, how do you think we can solve this problem? Ano sa tingin mo yung mga role ng mga content creators katulad mo in addressing itong infodemic na ito?
So sa tingin ko po malaki talaga yung role ng mga content creators and social media personalities when it comes to correcting yung mga misinformation. Dahil binigyan po tayo ng platform or following, so dapat gamitin po natin ito responsibly. Dapat po maging very vigilant din tayo sa mga bagay na sinishare natin. Let's make use of yung mga credible sources. Hindi po yung basta-basta tayo magpo-post ng kung ano-ano na hindi naman po natin alam yung sources. Kasi tandaan po natin na maraming tao ang nakikita yung mga pinopost natin. So let's be mindful and let's use always yung mga na-fact check na information po.
When it comes to information about medicine, mga gamot, mga vaccine, mga boosters, kung anong dapat gawin kapag COVID positive, at anything when it comes to healthcare, nakikita mo ba, Archie, na marami talagang misinformation online? At gaano ka-importante sa'yo na ma-debunk mo yung mga ganitong klaseng information, ganitong klaseng mga sites?
Actually, marami po talaga ako na-encounter, especially sa comment section when it comes to the vaccines. Magiging zombie ka daw, parang mag-iiksi yung lifespan mo kapag nagpabakuna ka. So bilang pong isang health professional at isang content creator, talagang goal ko po is to correct yung mga ganitong misconception. Kasi po, maraming tao, very dangerous ito, actually nakakamatay. Kasi kung lahat ng tao ay maniniwala na nakakasama ang bakuna, paano na lang matatapos itong pandemyang ito? So importante po na bilang isang content creator ay gamitin ko yung plataforma ko para gumawa ng mga ganitong content at itama kung ano yung tama. Gumamit po ng mga reliable resources and laging i-fact check yung mga bagay na sinasabi ko online.
Now, apart from information about medicine to treat COVID-19, Boosting our immune system and taking care of our health is vital in preventing infection in the first place. Archie, ano marerekomenda mo sa mga viewers natin when it comes to pangpalakas ng immune system?
So usually po kasi pagdating sa butika, ang nire-recommenda ko paggamit ng mga vitamins to boost your immune system like vitamin C or mga multivitamins po, enough na po yan. But also, let's remember na importante din na kumain tayo ng mga masustansyang pagkain at magpahinga at also mag-exercise po. Mas maganda po yung mga natural ways to boost our immune system. Also din po, sa panahon ngayon, dahil nga may pandemic, one way to properly boost our immune system is by getting vaccinated. Magpabakuna po tayo para may protection tayo sa COVID virus.
Now, before we go, Archie, can you give us a rundown of kung anong mga dapat merong basic sa isang medicine cabinet sa bahay?
So pagdating po sa mga medicine cabinets natin sa bahay, dapat lagi tayo merong gamot para sa ubo, gamot para sa sipon, lagnat. Also thermometer po, importante din na may thermometer tayo. And siguro mga antiseptic natin, mga bandage, mga gauze pads po, para just in case na magkaroon tayo ng mga emergencies or may masugatan sa atin, meron po tayong first aid na mabibigay sa kanila.
Thank you very much, Archie, for being with us today, and thank you for doing your part in helping people throughout this pandemic. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. We'll see you again next time.